just want to make sure your screen is getting enough.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. I'm Councillor Alejandra Bravo, and I'm the chair of the Economic and Community Development Committee. We have quorum, and I'm now calling meeting 26 to order. Welcome, everyone. Today's meeting is being held by video conference and in person at City Hall in Committee Room 1. This meeting is also being live streamed online at youtube.com/Toronto City Council Live. As part of our obligations under the Reconciliation Action Plan and the nation-to-nation relationships and duties that Canadians have to Indigenous people, I want to acknowledge that we are on the lands ancestrally of the Anishinaabe, Chippewa, Haudenosaunee, and Wendat peoples, and today there's a Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. To me, for this committee, it's the place where we think about economy and society as a way that we take care of our obligations to each other. So that I'll proceed then to just provide instructions for participation in the meeting. If you're registered to speak at today's meeting, please listen for me to call your name. I will call speakers in the order they appear on the list. The list of speakers can be viewed online by visiting the Economic and Community Development Committee page at toronto.ca/council and clicking the speakers box for today's meeting. Members, the City Clerk has provided all agenda materials on toronto.ca/council and on CMP, the Clerk's meeting portal. Clerk's IT staff are available to members if you need help with your devices. I also want to remind you to please submit and approve your motions by email. Staff are available at ecdc@toronto.ca to help with motions. Are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Seeing none. May I have a motion to confirm the minutes from our meeting on December 2nd, 2025? Councillor Shan, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Let's proceed to the agenda review. I understand that there's one new business item that needs to be added to the agenda, but I will come to that at the end of the run-through. EC 26.1, Toronto's Screen Future, a strategic plan for continued growth 2025-2030. That's held for speakers. EC 26.2, Toronto's Festival Strategy. That's held for speakers. EC 26.3, changes to Business Improvement Area Boards of Management. Would anyone like to hold that item? No. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. EC 26.4, Consumer Protection, Ticket Price Gouging, and Booking Accommodation, Hidden Fees. Would anyone like to hold that item? Would anyone like to speak to that item? Okay. Can I get someone to move that? Councillor Shan, all in favor, opposed, that's carried. EC 26.5, opportunities for performing arts infrastructure in Scarborough. This requires a motion to add as new business. Moved by Councillor Shan, all in favor.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Councillor.
I can't hear you.
Councillor Moise, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Councillor Moise.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
There we go. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, I can hear you, Councillor Moise. Sorry about that. I thought you couldn't hear me. It was very circular. Okay, and for and EC 26.5 added to the agenda, we will come back now to EC 26.1, Toronto's Green Future, a strategic plan for continued growth 2025 to 2030. And we will go to the first speaker on that item is Magali Simard, Cinespace Studios. Magali Simard, bienvenue.
There's actually going to be, we're doing a combo mega presentation here for you today.
Okay.
So I'll introduce us both and I'll pass the mic to my colleague in a few minutes. Good morning, Chair and members of committee. My name is Magali Simard. I'm the Vice President of Global Industry and Brand at Cinespace Studios. We're the largest film and TV production soundstage operator in Toronto. We operate 1.4 million square feet of film and TV production space in the city, in Etobicoke, and in the Portlands. Many of you actually have visited some of our stages, and if you have not, I'd be delighted to show you around. In the past year alone at CineSpace, we've hosted productions like Frankenstein for Netflix by Guillermo del Toro, Law & Order Toronto, The Westies for MGM, Tell Me Lies Season 3 for Disney, The Testaments for Amazon, to only name a few. And so you know, CineSpace also operates in Los Angeles, Chicago, Atlanta, Wilmington, North Carolina, and in Germany. So we see Toronto not in isolation as an industry, but as part of a very, very competitive global production landscape. I'm joined today by my industry colleague, Victoria Harding, who's the Executive Director of the Directors Guild of Canada, Ontario, who I will pass the mic to after my portion here. We are here today expressly to support the passing of Toronto's Screen Future, a strategic plan for continued growth, 2025 to 2030, and to encourage ECDC to formally adopt it. Both of our organizations were extensively consulted on this strat plan in the development of it and in its completion, alongside many, many of our industry colleagues. And what this document represents for us is very important. It's alignment between the city, between the city's film office, and with the industry itself. As some of you must know, Toronto is already a major screen production hub. We hover at around $2.6 billion a year in economic activity. That means money spent right here by productions. And today, the sector supports more than 35,000 workers across the city and the region. It's an undeniably big success, an undeniably big industry that means a lot of creative power and a huge economy for the city. I will say, though, we're also at a turning point. I'm sure most of you consume content, quite a bit of it, like most people. And you may have seen through the trades or just like anecdotally that the industry is at quite a crossroad in a way. Globally, production volumes have consolidated. You can hear of very large corporations potentially merging, productions volumes globally going down, costs have gone up. Competition between jurisdictions, and I can name many to give you an example, like Toronto competes globally, and these are just a few, but from London, Budapest, from Sydney, Australia, Atlanta, Los Angeles, where we all have our own stages, Vancouver, the competition is fierce. A lot of cities have succeeded in this environment, and the ones that do so are the ones that have been very deliberate, strategic, and coordinated in how they support their screen industries. Toronto's success over the past decade and more did not happen by accident. It happened because the city and the industry worked together by investing in infrastructure, in talent, develop smart public policy, including some with other levels of government. Cut off. I was doing so well. Gee, how will I recover? And this strategy document to us acknowledged that history and builds on previous strategies that we were also involved in developing. It's a roadmap for all of us to create that competitive future. We cannot sit on our laurels. We see it in the past years. Toronto is a darling of film and TV, but you don't remain so unless you do a ton of work around the infrastructure around that. So from an industry perspective, one of the most valuable aspects of this plan is the strong support for the Toronto Film Office. Many of the staff is here today. It's widely regarded, that office, as a golden standard around the world of how film offices operate and deliver to our clients from around the world that choose Toronto. For producers choosing where they bring their projects, it's often the first and most important point of contact. Its ability to coordinate permitting, to advocate internally across city divisions, which is difficult on a good day, and market Toronto globally is essential to our competitiveness. This strategy to us does three really critical things. It formalizes the city's commitment to championing the screen industry, something that our clients also really see. It gives the film office clear parameters and priorities to operate within, and it creates a shared reference point that both the city and us in the industry can return to when challenges arise and activities are designed and launched. So whether it's advocating for stable tax incentives at other levels of government, supporting sustainable production practices, ensuring Toronto remains attractive for studio developers like us, or strengthening workforce pipeline, having an adopted strategy really matters. From where I sit as a studio operator investing in long-term capital in this city for very large buildings, the message this sends is simple and it's powerful. Toronto is open, it's competitive, and it is serious about screen production. It's about being very intentional in its assessment of employment lands, in working to attract further physical infrastructure developments for the sector, in making Toronto at large a film-friendly city that allows, supports, and really actually encourages film activity throughout its geography.
I'm just going to ask you to stop for 1 second because you're over time, and then I'm going to ask you a question, which is, would you please finish what you were going to say?
I was actually finished. You were right on.
Sorry
Thank
about
you.
that.
It's incredible.
Thank you. Apologies. We welcome, and we'll give you 5 minutes. And if you go over, I'll just. Okay, there we go. Welcome, Valerie Harding. You're going to speak as well?
Yes, I'll pass it over.
Go on. Yeah. Hi, my name is Victoria Harding. I'm the Executive Director of the Directors Guild of Canada in Ontario, as Magali said. We represent almost 4,000 creative and operational film and television professionals, including directors, assistant directors, production managers, production designers, editors, and their respective departments working across the province on a wide range of productions. One of our members just this weekend, Tamara Deverell, just won a BAFTA for production design on Frankenstein, and we have our fingers crossed for her Oscar nomination later in March. From a labor perspective, this strategy is especially important because our workforce is the foundation of Toronto's success as a production hub. It's the human infrastructure, the talent here that clinches Toronto as a chosen location over so many competing jurisdictions. The industry at large currently supports more than 35,000 workers in Toronto, and the demand for skilled crew members continues. At the same time, we're facing real pressures, rising living costs, barriers for entry-level workers, and an aging workforce as many of our most experienced professionals approach retirement. This strategy directly acknowledges these realities. It emphasizes the importance of training, mentorship, and workforce development, including programs that support diversity and inclusion both in front of and behind the camera. It also recognizes the need for stronger coordination between the city, industry, and educational institutions so that workers are prepared not just for today's productions, but for the future of the sector. For a major labor organization like ours, having this strategy formally adopted matters because it creates consistency and predictability. It helps ensure that workforce considerations are integrated into decision-making around funding, program design, and marketing. Simply put, a strong screen industry requires both world-class infrastructure, both physical and human, and a supported skilled workforce. This plan understands and respects that balance. Together, we would like to thank city staff and all the industry partners who consulted in their extensive work that went into this strategy. From both a studio and labor perspective, we see this as a practical, forward-looking document that reflects a meaningful consultation process and real needs for the industry. We respectfully encourage ECDC to adopt Toronto's Screen Future, a strategic plan for continued growth 2025 to 2030, and that's a long title, and to continue working in partnership with the screen sector to ensure Toronto remains one of the world's leading cities for film and television production. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the deputants? Councillor Shen. Councillor Candival. Sorry, I'm very sorry about that.
It's all good. It's all good. Thank you, Chair Bravo. Thank you for the deputations. A lot of important food for thought for us to reflect on as council. And I was particularly struck by the comment of, where the industry is at a crossroads, I think is the term you mentioned, and productions being consolidated and perhaps consumer patterns are changing. And I think there's an argument that it's moving towards digital content creation. How is that impacted how the industry is doing business and perhaps pivoting or not?
Okay, thank you, Councillor. I would say, like, to paint a very sort of clear picture is, in the peak days of film and TV, there were about 600 productions greenlit annually, mostly out of Los Angeles, that all of us were fighting to get. There's now about 300. It's a big difference. So the pie has shrunk, but cities like ours that have really built something like really foundationally solid, we're not a city that came around with a last minute tax incentive and tried to cobble together workers and use a random building to do stuff or build them quickly, are the ones that stand to win the long race. And we feel extremely positive in our capacity to be one of those cities, like no doubt there. But it means that it's a more competitive landscape. Not that we ever really sat around and waited for people to come, but there was definitely bigger volumes that kind of made it, I would say, slightly easier to attract. So those consolidations, those changing patterns means there's just a little bit or quite a bit less productions going on around the world. So we have to put our offer forward that is so airtight, which I would say we do now, but that work has to keep going on workforce development, on infrastructure upgrades or further expansions, on tax incentives, advocacy at other levels of government, on Toronto being very friendly when you come and shoot. So those elements become like your absolute clincher over others that cannot really afford to be that way.
Sorry, just to dig a bit deeper, and this may not be true, but what we see in here is that there's more short form content. The production's moving towards digital creators on their phones, shorter TV shows. Is that true? And B, is the industry here in Toronto pivoting to that kind of shorter form digital content?
There's definitely a lot of that, and I'm happy to share the mic on this answer, but I would say the bread and butter and the eye on the prize remains long format TV and film. The budgets are absolutely incomparable to short format. So I would say yes, like we have our eye and we certainly welcome smaller, shorter productions, but a tiny sort of like more like say influencer type content that we see everywhere probably does not need to travel across countries to go produce. Large shows can and to us should.
Is there a shift from film to TV? Because
Toronto is, yes, there are definitely more long format TV series. Last year we had a few feature films, some very large scale, like a Frankenstein, but we over-index big time on long format TV series, which is the way of the world and consumption, really.
The second question I had is the impact of Asia. We see that obviously in the economic world. We see the Prime Minister going there quite often. Given the tremendous growth and also our primary source for immigration, has there been any consideration in terms of the nature of content and production here to address that obviously incredibly large market? Are those trends, are there trends? Are you seeing any pivots or changes to the content?
They have, there's great markets around the world that produce. I would say Asian content does not come a lot to North America to shoot. They're very established. I'm happy to pass it to you, Victoria. But I would say the co-production type agreements that we're really seeking are mostly, I would say, with Western Europe, with South America, with Australia, New Zealand, countries with whom we have co-production agreements in Canada, and in a landscape where perhaps less American products will necessarily always come, those international outreach are, and the city has been implicated in all of this in the past few years, are kind of where we have to.
That's, what leads to my next question, which is the workforce development. And given, such a hyper-diverse place in the GTA, what do you see are the opportunities to grow folks in the workforce?
That was the last question.
Sorry, go ahead.
The counselor, that's the last question.
Okay, thank you. I think we do an enormous amount of outreach to some of the underrepresented communities. We've been doing a lot of training together with community organizations like POV. We also do a lot of outreach at festivals that are being created. And I know that the South Asian Film Festival had a great presence this past year, and we were very much involved in that. So there is a lot of outreach happening and a lot of work to make sure that our workforce reflects our city, and that the film industry is a bit of a beacon on that front. So yes, we're actively working on that. And there are trade missions also going, like there are events happening in Southeast Asia, all over Asia. There was a trade mission recently. So it's definitely increasing our co-production treaties and so forth. Doesn't really fall within this domain, but it's work that's happening at the federal level for sure. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions of the deputants? Thank you. Thank you for coming and for conforming to our rules here, which are quite inconvenient sometimes. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. Are there any questions of staff? Councillor Shan, 5 minutes.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. I had very similar questions to Councillor Kandaville, but I had it for staff. So I'm going to ask the same question. The workforce development is part of the plan, and equity-focused workforce development. What kind of leverages do we have as a city in some of the collaborations, partnership funding, or in-kind support that we provide to other places, particularly not-for-profit structures and subsidized workplaces, to ensure that the workplaces are reflective?
To the chair, the city recognizes that talent in Toronto is perhaps the single biggest selling feature of our film sector and allows us to reliably bring in new business. As a result, the city has an active role not just to ensure that we work to develop that talent, to address gaps, but also work to ensure that the workforce is as reflective of the broader population as possible. To your question, we found the best way to do that is to work with on-the-ground community organizations. Victoria mentioned POV 3rd Street as an example, who both our organizations have worked with to tap into talent at the community level, make them aware of opportunities in the film industry, and then develop. And our role then becomes working with the unions to place these folks as production assistants, hairstylists, set accountants on certified productions. We also do this in collaboration with the TDSB in an XOTO schools program where students can achieve co-op credit by taking the same training and working on certified productions.
Thank you. In 2017, when I was here, we had a trade mission to India, and a lot of the focus was on this particular topic of expansion. And we heard now that, it is not an attractive kind of collaboration, but it continues to grow here. And even in the broader market, we have a lot of Southeast Asian multilingual content actually dominating the scene here. Is there, and with the population here, is there any future opportunities that, even if they are at a smaller starting scale, to explore that the city might be considering?
To the chair, like a lot of industries, film is facing the need to diversify its trade partners. So currently in Toronto, we define the industry between service, or principally American production, foreign production, and domestic production. Perhaps 10 years ago, that balance was about 50-50. More recently, it's been about 80-20 with service over domestic. We need to do everything we can, just like manufacturers, to retain as much of the American and foreign business that we can, while also growing domestic production that Magali referred to. Among those markets that we could focus on should be the largest markets in the world. So India would be one of those, and as you state, has been a focus for cultural trade missions for not just the province of Ontario, but the federal government, and we'll continue to work with those governments to try to establish stronger links.
Just shifting back to the workforce related stuff, we hear often outreach as part of the work that's being done. But after a couple of decades of outreach, is there processes that we can set up as a city to look at some measurements or benchmarks or some sort of a reporting mechanisms, even if it's not not necessarily tied to funding, at least as a form of accountability?
To the chair, yes, this report before you has an 11-page evaluation framework with some 53 metrics. So we've worked very hard to be able to demonstrate to council how we'll achieve this strategy. Within workforce development, there are two things that inform our approach. One is working with industry on labor market surveys to define where there are gaps. And through that process, we've learned that perhaps the most in-demand position is a production accountant. We've also understood that hairstylist, particularly for black hair, is also an in-demand skill. So we focus on those where the jobs are, but we also look at ensuring the workforce is representative of the city as a whole. So 80% of the participants in the city-delivered workforce development programs are from equity-deserving groups. And I think Victoria mentioned we have had specific cohorts for Black youth, for Indigenous youth, and even LGBTQ+, where we placed people on the CBC GEMS series, sort of.
Okay. Thank you. My last question quickly is that we talked a bit about school board, but in terms of post-secondary institutions to create the pipeline of talent development that are often, the reason we hear often is the pool is not accessible or it's not there. That's not true to the extent, but is there any other steps being taken around post-secondary institutions?
To the chair, you're entirely correct. Colleges particularly are a key advantage for Toronto in the development of its workforce. I just choose one example, Sheridan College, which has been a partner to the city and Cinespace in the industry in developing the Screen Industry Research and Training Program, CERT, that operates to create a living lab for Sheridan students, many in animation and post-production, to work with the most current technologies to be able to enhance their skill set and find enduring jobs in the industry.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of staff? Deputy Mayor Malik.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the work on this. I know we're all excited about the potential to be highlighting Canadian stories, and especially right now where we've seen many successful films and television that were made right here in Toronto, and particularly in my ward, Ward 10, getting the acclaim that they deserve. And I'd like to understand more about how this updated strategy allows us to further our commitment to investing and supporting Canadian-made content, and to ensure that we are continuing to incentivize this, all that we have to offer in Toronto as a destination for international productions.
To the chair, you're correct that we need to both service the foreign film production that has been so critical to growing our industry while growing the domestic component. How we will do that, as you ask, is by a number of means laid out in the strategy. One is to continue to advocate for a very globally competitive production labor tax credit regime operating at both the provincial and federal levels. The second is also to follow new policy changes, particularly at the federal government, where they are for the first time pursuing in equal measure industrial and cultural goals in terms of how they're going to support the screen industries. And we're looking closely at the evolution of, for example, Canadian content regulations there to work with industry to be able to adapt. And the third level I'd speak to is ensuring that we continue to have the world's best labor force to attract production, that it remains representative of the city and becomes more so, and that Toronto remains a film-friendly jurisdiction so that productions can reliably shoot here with the least possible friction.
Okay, thank you. The strategy speaks to the importance of the film office and being a liaison with industry and a first point of contact in neighborhoods and with local residents. And can you share just a little bit more information about how the film office works with local communities who may be affected by intensive filming? It's definitely an opportunity, and it also does have understandable impacts.
To the chair, very good question in that film is labor and space intensive and imposes impositions, frankly, particularly through location shoots on Toronto's residents. And that can be in the form of congestion or other matters. The film office is acutely aware of that and works as a liaison between film producers and the neighborhoods in which they shoot to ensure that, frankly, the social license for filming at the rate that it exists is always maintained and never taken for granted. In Toronto, specific tactics include a program of XOTO givebacks. So this is where the film office will work with producers to do things like pay people should they need to move their car, compensate them for that. There's been instances where on a hot day they've brought out an ice cream truck to work with neighbors and to otherwise mitigate any of the little friction points that might arise between producers and residents.
Sorry, I just have two more questions. The second last one is to your point around having the world's best workforce. This report highlights that the sector is a source of 40,000 good jobs in our city, and we do need to be building the capacity for the next generation. So building on Councillor Shan's question, what are the enhancements coming through this strategy of the approach that we've taken as a city to building a more diverse and sustainable workforce?
To the chair, the approach outlined in the strategy includes, one, working on representation. Data from StatsCan would indicate that the creative sector labor force is composed of 36% racialized people, which in Toronto is below the level that would make it representative of the community as a whole. So as discussed, we work on really targeted programs, Black, Indigenous, LGBTQ+ with community partners, and we'll continue to do so. Number two, as Megali Samard indicated, it's a period of rapid technological change in the industry, and I think we are really lucky in Toronto to be at the forefront of the emergence of a lot of that technology and its application. And I'm surprised we've gotten this far without talking about dark slope and heated rivalry, but just as one example. So we need to ensure that we're investing in the producers of that technology and that our workforce is able to access that technology in a way, frankly, faster than other jurisdictions.
Thank you. And I think it goes without saying that we don't have to necessarily mention those to know what a big impact that they've had. The final question is on the FIFA World Cup. We're hosting it. It's going to be squarely in our downtown communities, particularly Liberty Village, Fort York, but also in our downtown David Pico Square. The impacts are going to be quite significant. And we know that this is also a very busy season for filming in the city and in downtown Toronto. I know that firsthand. So can you speak to how these are being prepared for what is often a busy summer competing with another busy summer?
To the chair, entirely correct. Not only will be there concentration of World Cup activity this summer in and around Liberty Village, Fort York, but it is by commercial activity the second largest film cluster in the city after the Portlands. So, which is a combination of firms located there, but also a lot of location shooting activity. We are working to try to, with the industry, to try to allow them to adapt to the conditions that FIFA will bring in terms of road closures and public activations in a way that they have enough foresight to plan and maintain production schedules. And I'll turn to my colleague, Bobby Donchis, who...
We're quite over. Just to point out, we're 6.5 minutes, so I would like to treat everyone fairly, and apologies for that.
No problem. Maybe I'll...
I'm going to ask a question, which is, what did you, could you continue to answer the question?
To the chair, as mentioned, the Film Permit Office is a global standard in terms of service to the industry. And that's not just in terms of the turnaround time, but how it performs this liaison function between producers and residents. Toronto was cited again, second year in a row, by Movie Maker magazine as the best place to make movies in North America. I'll turn to Bobby, who has been working between film producers and local community organizations to mitigate the impacts of World Cup, particularly in and around Liberty Village on filming.
Thank you. To the chair, a large part of the work that the Film Office does is communication to internal departments as well as the industry. Liberty Village specifically during FIFA World Cup will be impacted, and we are currently working with transportation, coming up with parking plans and moratoriums for specific dates. So we will have more information, and we will be posting that on our website. once we've come up with a plan to protect the neighborhood from being severely impacted during the FIFA games.
Thank you. Any other questions of staff? We already were concluded questions of staff. I thought you went first. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I don't know why didn't you used to sit over here? No, that's not it. I think that you left, and I apologize for that. I'm gonna owe you big time. I'm gonna give you 7 minutes. How's that? Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Bravo. To staff, as part of understanding how we grow screen-based film, TV production, et cetera, understanding our role in the Fed and provincial contributions, what would you say are the biggest things that are on the table that the Feds and the province are doing or contemplating that would enhance our growth?
To the chair, the first would be a new focus, I think at the federal level, particularly on film as both industrial and cultural. It had historically privileged the latter in terms of Canadians telling stories to Canadians. I think the film industry is being understood, as we understand it here in Toronto, as an important high growth sector that is fairly tariff resilient. We saw 19% growth December to December in the creative industries in Toronto, where we don't see that level of growth in other sectors. So I think working with the federal government to provide them the data points to support an industrial focus, which would give us the generous but stable tax incentive environment to continue to attract business. Notably, some of our commentators talked about what other jurisdictions are doing, and they are enriching their tax credits and changing the way they function, in fact, to capture labor expenditures that we don't touch in this jurisdiction. So one, we have to be on them about maintaining that. Number two, as you asked of the commentators, market diversification is really, really important. The federal government just led a creative trade mission to South Korea, as an example. So a growing market, it's riding a bit of a cultural super cycle right now, but be that India, be that South Korea. We recently conducted a film mission to Ireland, which also is now the fourth most valuable co-production arrangement for Canada. So the second thing we do is need to be on top of new market opportunities and participate in those market development efforts.
And with Queen's Park, what is the province doing that's the biggest helping factor, or is there anything on the table for consideration?
To the chair, I think the single biggest thing that Queen's Park could do is address the city's request that it adopt Official Plan Amendment 804 and help us to protect employment lands. Employment lands are critical for the film industry, as it is a space and labor intensive industry with significant need for intellectual property protections. And we've seen encroachment challenging.
Gotcha. And the province does offer tax credits, correct?
Correct.
But are they geographically enhanced? And are there any for Toronto?
To the chair, the province of Ontario offers a reimbursable tax credit of 35% on qualifying labor. It does enhance that with a further 10% bonus should you shoot effectively out of the GTA. It's called regional, but it's outside the GTA for a certain duration, for a certain minimum spend, et cetera.
But and that's only 10%?
It's 10% of the 35, so it's a 10% bonus.
Okay.
On whatever the tax credit value would be.
On that note, can or is the city within the strat plan considering whether it's property tax alleviation or something to spur growth outside of the core. So in areas in Etobicoke, Scarborough that don't have as much of a film, TV production, screen-based production industry, is that, can that be considered and furthered in the strat plan?
To the chair, yes, this plan speaks to it as it does in the culture plan and the tariff action plan, which is again to preserve employment land so that there is space. But we've also introduced a new tax increment financing program called EDGE, for which creative industries are one of the identified high growth sectors and have historically benefited from this program and its previous version. And those would be the two primary means by which. The other thing I'd say very briefly is market forces also are helping with the distribution of the film industry outside the core, as the adaptive reuse of logistics and warehousing facilities are very attractive to film producers and have intensified film production in areas like Kipling, Birchmount, Pharmacy.
Thank you. And lastly, with in the last decade, we saw the rise on streaming services like Netflix, Prime. What is the nature of our relationship with these massive streaming organizations? Is there any ability to promote Toronto-centric, Toronto-created content?
To the chair, the relationship of the city to the large streamers is a primarily industrial one, and they have, as we saw the run-up that Magali Smart spoke to, of competition among streamers and a real super cycle forming, they have been a significant component of what gets shot here in Toronto. Secondly, we do work with the federal government who have introduced legislation and adapted that legislation to try to work with streamers to pay back to Canadian production in the form that, say, other industries historically have done. We fully support those efforts while we lack the tools to do that ourselves. At a third level, Netflix, for example, has been our partner in some of the programs I've mentioned around workforce development. So they are a good corporate partner in the local market in helping support Canadian talent make a career in the industry.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So now to speak, I believe Councillors Candavel, Deputy Mayor Malik, and Councillor Shen will be speaking. Councillor Candavel.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, sorry. Whomever is ready, then Deputy Mayor Malik, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm very glad to speak today in support of Toronto Screen Future, the first updated film strategy for Toronto since 2017, and supporting the film and television industry in our city is very important, and that this report makes that absolutely clear. Currently valued at $2.7 billion, and the good jobs that it represents means that the benefit is exponential, while showcasing Canadian stories and talent wherever we can, our top priorities. And as we've heard today and in the report, that talent is unmatched and something that we should be so proud of. And we know that there is an appetite for Torontonians, from Torontonians for Canadian stories, and to see Toronto as Toronto on screen is so important, and to continue to support, invest, and encourage that is really important. And we know that it's also good business. As an example, this past Saturday, a merch sale and meet and greet at the Rivoli on Queen Street in my ward was hosted for the new film, Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie. And as you might have seen in the response and the engagement on that. It is being billed as a very fun film, but also maybe the most Toronto film ever made. And it was filmed on the streets of Spadina, Fort York, in my ward, and highlighting Toronto icons like the CN Tower. And that event had lines stretching down multiple city blocks that they had to book a second day. And I want to give a shout out to Toronto-born and grown talent, Matt Johnson in particular, who's an internationally acclaimed Toronto filmmaker and a longtime champion of Canadian stories. And that's just one amazing example that comes to mind. And we've referenced a few others as well. And we know that supporting the film sector means a lot of things. It means providing fast, reliable service of our film office to review and expedite permits to ensure Toronto stays competitive, and also to set an example for how this work can be done for other jurisdictions as well. It means forging and maintaining strong relationships with our international partners, especially and including many of our European partners, especially in this time of uncertainty and unnecessary tariff wars. And it means providing an opportunity to be a destination for film production internationally, while making sure that that experience is nurturing and providing space for the next generation of young and diverse Canadian and Torontonian filmmakers and creatives and skilled technicians who make movies and TV magic happen that truly reflects our city and all the other locations and fantastical places that we get to represent here. And investing in our film industry means continuing to invest in our most urgent priorities as a city that allows this industry to flourish. And that includes affordable housing that ensures that workers in the sector can live and call Toronto home, that safe and reliable transit means that you're getting to where you need to go in a timely way, and that construction and congestion management means that also the dollars going into the productions and your capability to make the most of each dollar as a resident in this city goes further. And everything that the industry continues to need to thrive is also the incredible champions, the viewers, the fans, and the folks who visit Toronto for everything that we bring to this sector. This is a very exciting next step in our work together. And again, very grateful to the city staff who've been working on this, and to our sector partners, and also to the amazing audiences, residents, and community stakeholders, our local businesses who make it possible for this industry to thrive in our city and to be one that drives, a Toronto that we can be proud of. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions of the deputant, of the mover? What, the motion? Oh, you didn't move a motion. Okay, sorry about that. Councillor Shan, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Bravo. Just echoing the sentiments of Deputy Mayor Malik, I'm proud to support this strategy for the next 5 years. And as we spoke, this is clearly an important part of city's identity, City of Toronto's identity, and a key component of economic development. And I'm very happy that this sector continues to be a sector with good paying jobs and good, there are challenges, there continue to be challenges, but thanks to professional associations and organized labor, compared to a lot of other parts in the world, this sector respects the professionals and the technicians who work in the sector in Toronto, and that's why it's important to keep supporting and helping to keep building this sector. So I'm happy to support that. I also think that we need to, not only on the production side of things, but also on the narrative storytelling side of things, we need to keep investing more to bring unique stories from our city through the infrastructure that we've built that helps produce many things for the world. But if the city can explore further ways of supporting storytelling, narratives, and productions that can amplify our voices, particularly the diversity of the city. Having said that, I think the two opportunities I think that could be explored further is obviously the concept of more collaborative approaches with South Asia, East Asia, Asian countries. There's a great talent pool here, and there is an amazing contribution that happens in that combination of collaborative approaches. There's a lot of consumption from media from here, And those countries are producing materials that are catered to audience here now because that amplifies their benefit and their profit. So how do we reverse that in a way that the storytelling from here can actually have an appeal there? And so there's lots of opportunities of cross collaboration with that. With the workforce questions, I know many people in my circle who have not been able to find meaningful employment here and have gone on to US or actually collaborating on projects in South Asia. So I think those talents are great talents that could be utilized more here. And how do we make sure that we open up those spaces, including the work we do in schools, doing school trips and having ethno-specific, ethno-racial, cultural-specific approaches to promoting the sector, in addition to that, working with post-secondary institutions and so on. Many of these beautiful spaces have spaces many people who are working in neighborhoods in Scarborough haven't had access to come and see or experience, to be inspired, to be able to dream to be working in some of these places. So I think it's important for us to continue to do that. And I'm glad to see a robust evaluation network, because we've talked about this outreach and pipeline and talent development and all those stuff for a couple of decades now. So a bit more concerted effort to measure and to target and to report out and to openly acknowledge where the challenges are. And I know there was a mention about 36%. I would love to, as a follow-up, get the report to see what that looks like and where we've had progress and which parts of equity-seeking communities that we haven't had progress and so on. So because the umbrella could be even further disaggregated to make sure that we are utilizing the great talent we have. And final point is that with a lot of migration happening from the countries that have produced thousands of films, there's a lot of internationally trained, internationally educated professionals who are in search of access to make things happen. In many cases, the opportunities aren't open to them. So it'll be good to actually also explore that. Not to say there's not enough work for the current people who are working there. This is not a field that there's a lot of shortage, but I think diversifying the workforce will actually create more opportunities as opposed to limit opportunities. So I'll finish that. Thank you very much, Chair Bravo.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other speakers? Councillor Candeville.
And I've got visuals to help tell the story. And a motion, do I move the motion first to create, the motion as you will read, is to create a Scarborough-centric working group with the Film and Television Digital Media Office to support the emergence and stabilization of the industry and its growth, particularly in Scarborough. So maybe we can move to the visuals. You pause the time.
I'm not sure that the clerks have the visuals. Yeah. Oh, okay.
There we go.
So, take over. Excellent.
All righty. Okay, Scarborough's Going to the Cottage. Crave's most watched show ever, Heated Rivalry, was filmed in my ward, very proud to say, at the Dark Slope production studio, where, fun fact, Cher built a recording studio in the second floor. And this highlights the hard work, talent, and creativity right here at home. And it's not just Heated Rivalry. Actually, the last 5 years has seen a tremendous outpouring of talent and production in the film industry here in Scarborough. Last week, our mayor spoke at the launch of Finch and Midland for a very an important cultural intersection in the city of Toronto. And this movie was received very well. It won in Asia. Anthony Wong received a Best Supporting Actor nomination. The previous year, we saw Morningside, a very important stretch in Scarborough, and directed by Ron Diaz. This was featured at the Real World Film Festival and did very well at Cineplex, which really turned the narrative that independent film can't do well in big box office theaters. The same year, we also saw Shook, which premiered at TIFF by Amir Walla, set between downtown Toronto and suburban Scarborough, telling the story that so many of us as second-generation children of immigrants and or refugees can connect with in a deep and human way. In 2022, Brother, based on the award-winning novel by David Sheriandi, won 12 awards at the Canadian Screen Awards. The NAACP Image Award, it won the Outstanding Independent Motion Picture and Outstanding International Motion Picture. And David Sheriandi, the author, won the 2017 Rogers Writers Trust Fiction Prize and the 2018 Toronto Book Award. And in 2021, the film Scarborough, based on Catherine Hernandez's best-selling novel, won 3 Canadian Screen Awards. So Scarborough has consistently shown up to tell stories of our city, stories about Toronto, for Toronto, and by Toronto. And it's one thing to film in Toronto, it's completely another thing to tell a story about Toronto set in Toronto. And this history in Scarborough goes back to Jim Carrey, to Mike Myers, and to present-day superstars like Shamir Anderson and Stefan James, who was nominated for a Golden Globe a couple years ago for If Beale Street Could Talk. But it's not just about talent, it's also about financial stability, removing geographic barriers, and industry centralization that makes the climb steeper. We, of course, have that creativity and potential. We need that opportunity. And the Scarborough Walk of Fame speaks to that talents that we see every day when we walk within the Scarborough Town Centre. And in my ward with Councillor Thompson, we're seeing tremendous density coming as part of the Golden Mile development plan. And with that, we need to support the work we're doing to preserve employment land, to create the creative spaces on employment lands to support this industry expansion. Yesterday, we had a productive meeting with Jason Thorin, the strategic initiatives team within planning, as well as Pat Tobin, the ECDEV team, to create a plan, to create a map, to create ultimately an ecosystem that promotes the arts, the culture, TV, film, digital production in Scarborough. We need those tools, and this motion to create that working group is one step to fulfill a pathway and journey to create that ecosystem. The talent is there, the infrastructure and support need to come with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? I'd like to say a word. First of all, I think audiovisuals are probably going to feature more regularly in this committee now. Thanks, Councillor Candeval. But it's just really great to see something coming to committee where we have the collaboration manifest of the industry and government. We have employers and labor working together, and we have inputs, incentives, and a recalibration of everything that the city can do to make this absolutely crucial industry thrive. It's also very rewarding to see that this is connected to 3 other important strategies that have reported into this committee. The Action Plan for Toronto's Economy, the Mayor's Economic Action Plan, which is very connected, and Culture Connects. So there's real coherence in terms of all of our strategies here, and I think that that's an excellent piece of work. Evidently, as my colleagues have said, this industry is extremely high value to the economy, absolutely strategically crucial to the success of Toronto, and not just Toronto, the entire region, the province. And because we are such a motor in terms of what we remit to the regional, the provincial and national government, federal government, and taxation, this is a key industry for Canada. The workforce development elements, I'm very pleased to see in questions from my colleagues and what the deputants had to say and answers from staff. these are good jobs. These are good jobs, union jobs, and there's real work being done to ensure that top talent is diverse, that people from all across Toronto are able to access those good jobs. And I just want to highlight Point of View Film, which is in Davenport at 32 Lisgar. And a project and a space supported by Economic Development and Culture. These are wonderful developments that we need to lean further into this because it's the diversity of our city and the talent in our city, the global connections and languages that we speak. These are all part of our strategic value to the industry. Excellent to see the focus on employment lands. And when I started as a counselor in the beginning of this term, we were constantly fending off requests to convert employment lands into housing, positing the idea that employment lands were the only way that we could provide more housing. And we have made a massive shift as a council, and I think as a city, by naming this in the action plan for Toronto's economy, by naming this in the mayor's action plan, and in this strategy. For the film industry. We cannot be a successful city where people have a good job and are able to produce value for themselves, their family, and society if we don't protect employment lands. That's wonderful. And the mentions of all of the policy and funding and regulatory environment that three orders of government are creating together. I want to see more telling of this kind of story of success. We do need support from the public, a deep understanding about what this industry provides to Toronto, and including the capacity to tell stories, to create art, to put something intangible maybe into the world that we need as humans. And I would like to see real advancing on the work that's being proposed here to ensure that the public supports, cheerleads, and understands that filming will happen in our city, and that's good for everyone. And finally, I just want to say thank you for everyone involved in creating this film ecosystem in this city. The Film and Television and Digital Media Advisory Board, the industry leaders that were here today to speak with deep expertise, the Film Office, Economic Development and Culture, and you can see from the quality of the questions and the comments that have been made that this is something that is really important to this committee and to this council. Thank you. Any final speakers? No? We'll move to vote now. On Councillor Candeval's motion, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Item is amended. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. So we'll move on to EC 26.2, Toronto Festival Strategy, and for this we have speakers. The first speaker is Kojo Modeste of Pride Toronto. Online? Kojo Modeste, Pride Toronto.
Hi,
Welcome.
good morning.
Welcome, Kojo. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. And I don't think I would use all 5 minutes because I also submitted a written submission. So first of all, want to say thank you for the opportunity to present to the committee, and really appreciate the work both of City Council and of the staff as it relates to strengthening the culture and everything that is happening in the city of Toronto. Want to really also acknowledge the work of the mayor and again, and City Council just around, ensuring that funding continues to be part of the work that is happening. And we at Pride Toronto really, really appreciate it. However, I think there are a few things that I wanted to, again, and I know this is not going to be new to folks here, but Pride Toronto continues to be, that has a vision for building the city. And when you look at the economic impact of Pride Toronto, and for those of you that may not know, I just want to share some of those numbers with you. In 2025, we had over 2 million visitors visiting, and being part of the celebration of Pride Toronto. We had over $250 million in taxable revenue. And this for us, adding that to the GDP makes it speaks volume to what Pride Toronto brings to the city. We also looked at, we created over 4,500 jobs. Many of those jobs continued to be permanent jobs within the hospitality, the food sector. So this for us, it's really important in terms of our contribution to building as a brighter Toronto. We also want to acknowledge that we have received $485,000 from the city in 2020 for the 2025 festival. That's cash, and significant contributions in kind, i.e., fencing and other areas. However, 18,500 of that went back to the city in permit fees. 185,000 went back to paying for police services. And we had just around 7,500 into noise audit, which a total of just over $274,000. And it speaks again to how are we going to be able to continue. As we're having these conversations here today, we are seeing the cost of doing the festivals growing, and the contributions from all levels of government is not happening. So really wanted to look at the hotel tax and how can Pride Toronto benefit more. And I know we are fully aware that the city has directed this funds elsewhere, but we're looking at how can festivals like Pride Toronto benefit more from this. And we just throwing out the math, 10% of the hotel tax on the festival weekend will give Pride Toronto approximately $200,000. And so really would like for the committee to really start rethinking how some of those hotel tax are distributed to benefit the folks that are really drawing the visitors into Toronto. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the deputant? No, thank you for joining us today.
Councillor Moyes has a question.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Moyes.
Thank you. Kojo, thank you for coming today to Butte. I know you focus mainly on the festival downtown, and of course it brings people down here to the city. But maybe you can share with us, though, the strategies that Pride Toronto has taken in regards to amplifying Pride across the city, because I know that there's activities in all corners of the city. So can you perhaps touch on that a little bit?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Moyes, for this question. And again, just to give a little bit of context, I started in Pride 2020, and 2021 we had events in parks in all the city wards across the city. We named it Community Connect, and to this day, this continues. And so for 2024, 2025, and 2026, we are going to be targeting 3 ride-ins outside of the downtown area to have Pride celebration. And we call that Community Connect. And this year, we will be in my home ride-in, which will be in Malvern, at the Malvern, just around the Malvern Town Center. We are going to be working with partners in Jane and Finch and having Pride in Jane and Finch. And we are going to be working in South Etobicoke with Humber College to have Pride in that area. And this for us is really important, taking Pride outside of the downtown, because queer folks do not just live in the Toronto Centre riding. We live throughout this great city of Toronto, and Pride Toronto is very, very committed to ensuring that we do this. On top of that, we also have Newcomers Pride, which happens at St. Clair and Lansdowne in one of the city parks in St. Clair and Lansdowne. We have Seniors Pride, and the goal is to really continue to branch out of downtown, continue to have the main festival downtown, but all other aspects to try and really branch outside of downtown.
Thank you. I know that Pride Toronto has had difficulty fundraising over the last year or two, and you mentioned the hotel tax here. When would you like to see those sort of changes take place? I mean, obviously, we just went through the city budget for 2026. So you're looking perhaps towards 2027 and beyond?
Yes, I think at the earliest convenient, for us this is important. As we're speaking here now, I got a call this morning from one of my sponsors that said, "We're with you." Our sales have dropped so much, they're reducing from 60,000 annually to 30,000. So they're not saying they're not with us, they're just saying that they can't because of the economic crisis that we're all facing. So I think there's a little bit of urgency in that. So I think, even if, the decision makers can make things happen before 2027, I think that will be very grateful.
So short of the hotel tax, are there things that the city is doing to perhaps help promote Pride and perhaps even getting funders to support Pride? I'm asking if we've been doing that, or is that solely on your shoulders, Pride Toronto shoulders?
That is, and you know what? We've had individual councillors, we've had individual staff from the city of Toronto reach out to us, and say, how can we help? But I think again, if we can have more of a collaboration and have more of an intentional dialogue around how that can happen, I think that would be very helpful. So I think, yes, it's great when we get the call from you, Councillor Moyes, or it's great when we get the call from, the mayor's office. And, whenever we're in Scarborough, Councillor Thompson always come out and, and offer to support. But I think it's beyond those individuals. We need to see more of a collective approach and all councillors on board to support the work of Pride Toronto, the largest pride in North America. And Toronto do not want to lose that record that we have of hosting the largest pride in North America. But if we continue to have to reduce year after year, eventually we would lose that momentum.
Well, thank you for your service, and thank you for debating today.
Thank you. The next speaker is Kelly Jackson, Destination Toronto. We'll call that name again once we get through the list. Neil Bettridge. Welcome, Neil, to committee.
Good morning. Thank you, Councillor Bravo and members of the committee for the opportunity to depute this morning. Apologies, I don't know why the video is not coming on. I'm here today on behalf of the Gooderham Warts Neighborhood Association. And while we love the festivals and appreciate many things in the festival strategy, we have serious concerns with notable omissions from Toronto's new festival strategy. In particular, we're disappointed that the festival strategy and the accompanying report from Action have failed to respond to Council's directive from last year to develop a set of criteria for managing festivals and events on private property as part of this festival strategy, at the time intended to be a report back in the fourth quarter of 2025. We see staff are now suggesting that they'll develop quote unquote good neighbor guidelines to support events on private property and report on them in May of 2026. Frankly, these guidelines have been needed for years, will now arrive at best 2 quarters later than expected, and too late to help our community for 2026. We'd strongly urge you to have staff take the next logical step beyond simply outlining voluntary guidelines, to also identify potential tools that the city can use to manage the impacts of festivals held on private property. And we noted that the report indicates more festivals are going to be encouraged to move out of the public realm and instead use private venues. And that's going to have a corresponding erosion of the city's capabilities to manage these festivals, meaning they may be felt by more communities in negative ways, quite possibly including many of your constituents. To give you a little context on GWNA and our concerns, for more than 2 decades, GWNA has served the interests and worked to enhance quality of life for residents in and around the Distillery District. Our volunteers have collaborated with the Distillery District's management for many years through an ongoing distillery roundtable. And this work has included many years of iterative, incremental refinements, attempting to mitigate negative impacts on residents in the community from the landmark distillery Winter Village. And this is an event that over 15 years has expanded in scale, and as staff have previously reported, extended its duration by more than 40% to run continuously for close to 2 months every November through January. And while the private festival operators shown goodwill in making various tweaks each year, attempting to address various concerns, the Distillery Winter Village clearly operates in ways that would not be allowed for a festival in the public realm. For example, the Winter Village's 2-month duration, which is actually residents' consistent top frustration, that duration is double what would be allowed in the city's definition of a festival, which specifies no longer than a month. So while we love the many weekend events throughout the year, the 3-week film festival in June and July, 2 months tying up the whole holiday season is just too much. And we've heard commonly from city staff of you that there's not much they can do about events on private property. But we noted the festival and strategy report refers to having impact on the public realm, not just making use of the public realm. And while the Winter Village takes place primarily on the distillery's properties, queues of patrons occupy significant portions of sidewalks around the blocks. Nearby public streets get reconfigured for the duration of the event. Traffic patterns are modified, and access to residents' homes are impacted. And these impacts on the public realm and the consequences for thousands of residents have been repeatedly raised and documented. We know from experience, even when the community engages strongly with excellent support from councillors and their teams, the city currently lacks tools, meaning we remain at the mercy of event organizers who are under no obligation to take actions that don't suit their commercial objectives. So GWNA believes the city should have effective mechanisms to manage the overflowing impacts from a festival on private property that carry over to the public realm. We believe that empowering councillors and staff with clear rules and tools for festivals on private property would enable them to better balance festival promoters and communities' interests while providing clarity for all parties. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the deputant? Thank you for joining us today. The next speaker is Sean Boring, Do West Fest. Sean? Okay, we'll go back to Kelly Jackson. Destination Toronto is online. Welcome to committee. You have 5 minutes. Kelly Jackson?
Hello, can you hear me okay?
We can.
Great, good morning.
Welcome. Good morning. 5 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, chairs and members of the committee for the opportunity to speak with you. Festivals are more than cultural celebrations. They are powerful drivers of Toronto's visitor economy and key contributors to our city's global competitiveness. They attract domestic and international visitors who spend money in our hotels, restaurants, shops, and neighborhood main streets. They also strengthen Toronto's reputation as a vibrant and diverse city. Destination Toronto welcomes a strategy to strengthen our festival ecosystem, remove operational barriers, and build awareness of the range of annual events and festivals happening in Toronto. For the last year, our organization has been leading the development of a destination master plan, which is a 10-year roadmap for how the city can grow and thrive as a tourism destination. This process has included considerable community engagement, and the role of festivals and events was raised consistently by participants across the tourism industry and beyond. Stakeholders emphasize that supporting festival and event organizers by reducing red tape, providing them with sustainable funding, and improving access to information and city processes are critical to enhancing Toronto's reputation as a global cultural capital. The strategy captures these same themes and outlines responsive actions. As part of our research, we benchmarked Toronto against a list of 14 North American competitor cities. We ranked third in a category encompassing arts, culture, festivals, and nightlife. From a competitive standpoint, Toronto is strong, but there is much more to do to maximize our strength. We have iconic events that drive major visitation, events like Pride, Caribbean Carnival, TIFF. They create significant new and return visits each year. We have the opportunity to elevate them to be even more powerful drivers of visitation and global recognition. We also have a range of neighborhood festivals that reflect our diversity. And once someone has planned their trip to Toronto, these offer opportunities to draw visitors to different areas of the city and showcase our culinary, creative, and cultural strengths. It's important that we look at opportunities to support and promote both of these types of festivals and events. Promotion really is key to maximizing their impact, and it is good to see the strategy before you speaks to those related opportunities. Destination Toronto maintains a citywide calendar of events that showcases festivals and cultural programming. The platform is designed to serve as a free, centralized submission and listing tool for event organizers. In addition to direct submissions from producers, the calendar can incorporate automated feeds from external ticketing and event platforms where integrations are available. By enabling event information to be submitted once, the calendar reduces duplication for event producers, while expanding the visibility of their listings across Destination Toronto's channels and partner platforms. The platform also enables event listings to be shared with external websites through integrations, including a content sharing agreement with Now Toronto. Business improvement associations and other partners may also display curated event listings on their websites. We maintain a partnership with the Toronto Alliance for the Performing Arts, and the calendar also supports the administration of the HipTix program. We have had conversations with city staff about integrating calendars to enable broader distribution of event information, with a focus on reducing the administrative burden of multiple submission processes. And we welcome the opportunity to explore further what is possible. Toronto's dynamic arts and culture scene is already a pillar of who we are, but more must be done to elevate our festivals and events into a coordinated year-round driver of visitation and global recognition. Festivals can be the kinds of experiences that inspire travel, whether that's a short subway trip to a nearby neighborhood or an international flight. Having a thriving calendar of events means we have a set of economic engines and community builders, and in some cases, they are global brand assets. If we invest strategically in infrastructure, funding stability, coordination, and if we're ambitious about how we can scale our festivals, the benefits are many, and Toronto will set the new benchmark. This strategy is an important step toward that future. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today to express Destination Toronto's support.
Thank you very much for joining us. Are there any questions of the deputant? Seeing none, I'll call the final speaker again, Sean Bowring, Due Westfest. Thank you. We're going to move to questions of staff. Are there any questions of staff? Councillor Moyse.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. So I see that in the 2025 operating budget, we've increased funding for cultural festivals by 32%, which amounts to about $613,000. So the city is currently investing in the arts. Has the province and the feds put any money in the last year?
To the chair, the province and the federal government have not kept pace with the City of Toronto in terms of the increase that this council has made into festivals. The funding is a bit variable, but at best is holding steady, and at worst is seeing a slight decline.
So what are we doing as a city to try to engage the two levels of government to actually give their fair share, since they're the ones who are benefiting more so than the city themselves when it comes to taxes being collected by these events?
To the chair, there's a broad advocacy effort to try to encourage the province and the federal government to invest more in festivals. It has multiple components, including one, we are making very clear in our communications through media and to the public that it's the province and the federal government who primarily benefit from the tax receipts associated with the spending around festivals. That the city, as we've noted with Taylor Swift, as we've noted in the run-up to the World Cup, the city is the minority beneficiary, below 20% usually. Number two, we're pulling together a festival association so that the sector itself can have a more consolidated and effective voice in advocacy. Number three, we use every communications opportunity. The mayor, in announcing a 16% increase in the funding to Pride in 2024, provided remarks directly to provincial and federal counterparts, encouraging them to invest more. And four, we work on a case-by-case basis. You may have seen in the media this week conversations around, for example, Taste of the Danforth. So we frequently, if we are looking to invest, we will make it a condition that the province match.
Okay, thank you for that. So in regards to promoting festivals in the city, like Pride and Caribbean Festival, what strategies are we taking or have taken to do so?
To the chair, we work very closely with Destination Toronto, and as Kelly Jackson, the last speaker, said, festivals form an important part of this city's brand abroad. And increasingly, in view of that, Destination Toronto has worked to promote not just Toronto by leaning on its festivals, but the individual festivals themselves. And Ms. Jackson spoke a bit to some of the mechanics around that with Now Magazine and others. Number two, this strategy does call for the creation of a festivals association, which is up and running, or soon will be. And the intention there is that the sector be able to promote itself more effectively. And three, finally, the city has worked to create an event calendar and is working to increase its marketing budget in promotion of these festivals as it's increased its investment in them.
So I know one of the deputants, Kojo Modeste, mentioned that though Pride is grateful for some of the in-kind contributions to reduce some of their fees, there is still a number of fees that the city charges these festivals like Pride, for example, the permit fees and so forth. Also, the police fees is a lot as well, among other things. So are there areas that we can probably try to support these organizations better? Can we, again, perhaps not charge a permit fee in some cases?
To the chair, we recognize that given the state of the city's finances, many divisions and agencies have had little recourse but to operate on a cost recovery basis. This has led to, in part, to an escalation in the operating costs facing festivals. It's an active conversation among divisions, what might be done to try to bring those down. And in part to address the issue, 3 years ago, EDC created the Special Events Stabilization Initiative, which provides funding particularly for public safety and public health costs that do help offset some of these city costs like paid duty officers, for example.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. More questions of staff. I have Deputy Mayor Malik.
Thank you very much. On the agenda today, and as we heard from the speakers, speaker on behalf of the Gooderman Wards Neighborhood Association, they shared their concerns and their experience with one of the most significant and well-loved festivals in our city, and that we have brought to our committee table before. Regarding previous direction, May 2025, to provide considerations around city processes and guidelines for what we are responsible for when a very significant event is taking place on private property. And as we know that this is, again, a very significant and well-loved festival in our city, it's also the longest consecutively run special event or festival in the city of Toronto, and that brings with it some very unique and significant impacts. My question is, there is work, and I will be bringing a motion forward about how we fulfill that original direction. But my question is specifically on how residents and local communities have been engaged throughout the development of the festival strategy, and how they'll be further consulted in advance of the May report back on some of these items.
To the chair, there was an extensive consultation process in the development of the festival strategy that included work by staff as well as OCAD University, who undertook research and public consultation. With respect to residents associations, there were specific tables that were organized for Toronto resident associations. With respect to Gooderman Wards Residents Association, particularly in recognition of the particular circumstances that the deputy eloquently spoke to, there has been direct engagement on the issues that that community faces. And while there was more work necessary to be able to satisfy the requirements of the council direction, we do look forward to bringing something forward in May that will be informed by a community and try to mitigate what are the spillover effects of large-scale, long-duration events in public or on private property.
Okay, thank you. We know that a large percentage of festivals take place and are located in our downtown. We heard from some of the deputants today. Can you share a little bit more also in this process how consultation occurred with councillors? We have festivals right across our city. They're, like I said, concentrated in some parts of our city right now, and that experience and everything that goes along with how festivals get their permissions to be successful are in their interactions with councillors' offices. So to what degree were councillors' offices consulted in the development of this strategy?
To the chair, an offer was made to the offices of all Toronto City councillors to be briefed on the development of the strategy and to provide advice in its finalization. The strategy has been, I'll admit, some time in development. So in addition to those formal calls, there have been a variety of briefings for councillors, particularly where there's a certain intensity of activity of festivals like in Ward 10 and in the downtown core.
Okay, well, that's important to hear. That unfortunately was not an experience that was shared across the board. So we'll look for more information about some of that outreach and how we continue to strengthen the strategy as well. My next question is just around some of the engagement that me and my office do with the teams at parks, as well as EDC, and leveraging opportunities to better utilize some of the under-programmed and very, I think, desirable spaces that have a lot of potential in our local parks or adjacent to them. Can you speak a little bit more to the engagement that EDC had with other city divisions like parks in the development of this strategy, and how we can use some of these maybe underutilized spaces to meet some of the demands and the opportunities that you're seeing?
To the chair, the process involved Economic Development and Culture leading an interdivisional working group, which included representation for Parks and Recreation. The strategy does call for, in service of reducing congestion in the city and reducing the cost structure for festivals, trying to move more of them out of the public right-of-way and into alternate spaces, and parks would be a primary interest there. We work with parks to try to identify, as you say, perhaps underused or suitable sites, which includes how parks are designed and built so that we can perhaps have the infrastructure necessary for plug-and-play pop-up of festivals. And we've been working to ensure the provision of power drops and other items to help festivals.
Thank you. And I believe, Councillor Shen, you have questions? 5 minutes.
Thank you. Based on all the festivals that we've funded, which areas geographically and which communities, ethno-racial communities or equity-seeking or communities of common bond, are underrepresented from your analysis?
To the chair, in terms of geography, the answer is easier to provide than ethno-cultural, given the nature of festivals, in that some are only ethno-specific. With respect to the 2025 run of the Cultural Festivals Funding Program, as divided by district, Toronto East York received 90% of the funding. Scarborough received about 10%, and Etobicoke and North York divided up 10%, realizing that doesn't round up exactly to 100. So festivals like cultural institutions are in Toronto, concentrated in the core, but we have been working to try to reverse that trend. And for recent iterations like the Community Support Celebration Fund that's supporting events over the course of the World Cup, the great majority of events, up to 70%, are going to be located outside of the downtown core.
What resources or what intentional work would be necessary to map out? It's hard to map out who are the communities that are benefiting, but there is a possibility to kind of gauge from application and reports to see, because some are targeting certain communities, some are major festivals that have multicultural approaches and so on. Some are general festivals, but predominantly non-racialized in terms of attendance. So is there some work being done around, because I know festivals have to be located in certain areas where it's conducive, but is it drawing people from different communities is another question.
Yeah, to the chair, we work to support festivals of all type and do not have a specific funding mechanism for, let's say, ethno-cultural festivals. That being said, we know that many of the city's largest festivals and even newer and smaller festivals emerge from specific diasporan communities, and we work where community organizations approach us, try to organize a festival and scale it and support its stability. I'll give you a specific example that in the recent delivery of funding to the World Cup funding program, the community support funding, of the 64 recipients, we noticed in looking at demographic gaps that the Tamil and Chinese community were underrepresented. And we undertook a second wave of specific outreach to those communities to develop projects to address that underrepresentation. So we do try, it's not a perfect science, but we do try to ensure that there are not significant gaps.
Okay. So I have a few other questions, maybe I'll ask them together. One is related to the consultation process, and if there's a follow-up that we could receive, like what the range of consultation and where those, participation came from. There's a heavy reliance on, from what I see, on BIAs as a model for festival, including funding, as well as in terms of the festival association being naming BIAs and TABIA as part of the thing. As you know, out of 80 plus BIAs, we have 5 in Scarborough for 25% of the population, 1/3 of the landmass. So that model may reinforce some of the inequities. So is there alternative ways of looking at engaging business communities outside BIA, and then the festival association itself is a great thing to do, but if it's already from the current pool of festivals, it reproduces the inequity in how we would be advancing. So what are the what are the safeguards that are being taken on those two inequities that could be potentially reinforced?
To the chair, taking the second part first, the Festival Association we're looking to seed, as you rightly point out, with Tabia in Toronto, is modeled very much on an example in Ottawa. That Festival Association, now about a decade into its maturity, actually has an incubator fund to address gaps in the festival offering in Toronto. Some are ethnocultural, but some are perhaps by the type of discipline that the festival promotes. We hope to replicate that over time. To the first part, our intention, we approached the festival community through the Toronto Festival Events Network to look at if the sector might self-organize and have a number of festivals step forward to take on the Christian Association. None were able to, and it's been a challenging couple of years, so that's understandable. Tabia became the best alternative, and as you state, does represent a large segment of particularly street festival organizers who are BIAs, but is not wholly representative, and we'll work to ensure that the interests of other festivals not associated with BIAs are included in the new festival association.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Candeville?
Thank you, Chair Bravo. Through you. Some of the challenges that may be common to different councillor offices has been connecting or not with transportation on logistic and other significant impacts. As part of the strategy, I think there's a lot to be improved with that consultation and inclusion of the office. Is that part of what we can look forward to as the festival season comes upon us?
To the chair, Transportation Services has, from the earliest days of work on the festival strategy, been a really, really active partner. They form part of a senior executive advisory group in the city that works to address issues that arise with festivals and take a holistic, whole-of-city approach to supporting festivals. And they have been a partner in the development of a new online permitting system that has just been released in its first phase with 2 additional releases to follow, which will significantly improve the user experience in seeking permits, Transportation Services included, for event organizers. My colleague Kevin is here from Transportation Services. I'll just see if there's anything. No, so we're good.
Where's Kevin?
My mistake. Technology.
Technology Services.
Technology Services.
Okay. Oh, okay.
I saw TS and mistook the acronym. My apologies.
All good, all good. And perhaps that's for, as we continue to improve each year, that transportation is here as well. Moving to how we animate public spaces that are not as, Councillor Shan spoke to that disparity, and, we see how, to compare North York Civic Center, that space is very animated throughout the year. We don't see that same vibrancy with Albert Campbell Square at the Scarborough Civic Center. What opportunity is there within the strategy to support community-based animators to liven these spaces with festivals that make it, that create sustainability and feasibility?
To the chair, you're right. There is a tradition that varies from civic center to civic center around performance. There's frankly an ecosystem that's grown up around Mel Lastman Square dating back decades. It is not the case in Scarborough, nor East York, nor Etobicoke. We do want to incent the uses of them, particularly as we bring online a new civic center in Etobicoke and try to intensify uses at the Scarborough Civic Center. We're talking to the Toronto Arts Council about creating a Arts in Municipal Squares program that would replicate what they do for historic sites and parks by providing funding to not-for-profit performing arts organizations to animate the civic squares.
So, sorry, I'll just stop your time for a second. Was there a question for Transportation Services? Because we do have them online.
Okay, thank you, Chair Bravo. Yeah.
Go ahead.
They're online. To transportation, how do you believe we can improve coordination, communication and consultation with councillor offices as festivals, whether longstanding or emerging, are coordinated in a way that is effective for both the vibrancy of the festival, but also the immediate impacts on neighborhood and community?
Through the chair, depending on the festival, we do get information from the organizers. We see what impacts potentially there might be. We work with the organizer and try to get them to secure a permit to mitigate any impacts. And then when we do get a plan from an operational plan from the organizers, we bring it forward to the local councillors. We discuss with them and highlight what mitigation measures are going to be introduced so that we minimize impacts to the community.
So in our experience, we had to go to transportation. We weren't approached by transportation on the mitigation plans, et cetera. So, I mean, that's for a consideration. So can we see more proactive approaches to the consultation and collaboration with the councillor's office?
Yes, we can certainly do that, especially if some of the mitigation that's being introduced requires, parking regulation changes or other conditions need to be changed in and around the festival site to ensure that people and vehicles maneuver efficiently around the area.
Thank you. And sorry, what's your name and title?
It's Naz Capano, and Acting Director of Street Permits.
Okay, thank you. And one last question, Chair, to Pat Tobin. As part of a strategy to grow nascent, emerging festivals in areas that are underserved, as indicated in the map in the document, what is for consideration beyond financial supports that can create that culture within communities that want to do something but are intimidated by the labyrinth of permits and permissions?
To the chair, of the four components of the strategy, sector development is a key one, and speaks to the need to expand the profile of festivals outside of the city core. Secondly, while BIAs are not the panacea to festivals, we do have a plan within the action plan for Toronto's economy to expand the number of BIAs, so we hope that that will assist. And in part three, we are using the new investment that the city council has provided both to the Cultural Festivals Funding Program as well as the Special Events Stabilization Initiative and the Community Support Celebration Fund to address that discrepancy, and are disproportionately investing outside the core in the new monies provided by council in the last couple of years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Minutes over time there. So are there any other questions of staff? No to speak. I have Councillor Shan, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Bravo. I have an amendment. If clerk's office can put that up. As we heard clearly, there is. First of all, I'm very supportive of the strategy, and I'm very supportive of the increased investment that we saw recently. Festivals serve multiple purposes. In addition to economic purposes, it's the identity again. As the previous item, this is how we get defined, our stories get told, we bring communities together to engage in beating social isolation, which again is a heavy problem for Toronto, as we've heard recently, how isolation is factoring into our lifestyle in Toronto. I think the idea of an association to look at these things is great because that gives ownership of the work together with all the festival. It's almost like a community of practice that they can troubleshoot, they can share, they can learn, they can scale, they can find synergies and so on. I hope that gets intentionally started with equity and frameworks of equity and power and privilege kind of figured out, because that's always creeps in if the design is not intentionally made. and we saw the disproportionality in Scarborough. Out of the Scarborough Festival, half of them are in the center area. I'm assuming Albert Campbell Square probably is the host of that and Thompson Park and also Taste of Lawrence and so on, which is fine, which is our Scarborough's center. It's good to see that activity, and so I'm assuming that some emotion like this can help us to, for example, Morningside Park. It's festivals of festivals on a weekend. There'll be about 30 festivals happening in there. It's probably adding up to a number of people that is equivalent to a major festival. But it's understanding how communities come together and so on. So how do we make sure that those spaces like Albert Campbell Square, Morningside Park, Thompson Park, Milliken Park, and those are actually supported in a way. So this motion can hopefully look at that. What we heard about the practice about analyzing the data for FIFA grants could be used to understand how different communities access these festivals, especially when and the larger festival that gets a larger chunk of the money deserve those funds because they are catering to a citywide development in terms of, but those same festivals can be asked to see how they can support ways in which broader participation of different communities as well. And Pride, Toronto has been doing a fabulous job over years to kind of make sure that happens as well. So there's definitely things to take from. Finally, I think it'll be also good to look at post-secondary partnerships in Scarborough to look at some of these disparate. In my motion, I don't mention Scarborough because I know Etobicoke is having similar things, so I don't want to be restricting this motion to Scarborough just because I represent Scarborough, so left it open. But I do think that, working with U of T Scarborough campus, the Centennial, the hospitality programs and other things to kind of figure out some research gaps that we might have, which we may not have capacity or we may be enhanced by working together to address this disparity would be helpful. At the end of the day, there are other ways than funding because these funding are great, but in the bigger picture, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 is not going to help a festival to become vibrant because we know the costs have gone up, particularly costs related to safety and policing. And all the technical costs as well. So if there's any way we can help scale up, like for example, if there are 4 sites in Scarborough, Albert Campbell Square, and the 4 parks we talked about, if there's a way for us to scale up some economies of scale to find sound systems and other things and so on, safety related work together with some of the divisions in there, police divisions and security services, it'll help to build that together. So there is a bit of a work that could be done from the Festival Association. If we can do this intentionally, we won't need a motion 2-3 years down the road, a Scarborough specific one, because I think the less we have to do that, the better it is for the city. So thank you very much. I appreciate support for this motion to do that.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the mover? No. To speak, Deputy Mayor Malik.
Can I get on the list as well? Thank you.
Yes, of course.
Thank you very much. I do have a motion today, and it has a couple of parts aimed at ensuring we have better accountability for some of the outstanding direction related to the festival strategy, that we are supporting festivals who may have lost their homes to find a new place in the city to continue their contribution, and that we are using all the tools at our disposal as part of the strategy to activate and program spaces, and I'm specifically looking at Liberty Village in my neighborhood, that have gone underused and make them vibrant parts of our community and very appealing opportunities for festivals to also find space in our downtown in particular. We know, and as we see clearly in this strategy, attending festivals is one of the top ways that Torontonians and visitors experience the culture and the energy and the communities in our city. An incredible 94% of Torontonians surveyed agreed festivals and events contribute positively to the vibrancy and social connectedness of the city. And 78% reported attendance at 3 or more festivals a year, and almost 80% expressing enthusiasm for more festivals in our neighborhoods. That is extraordinary. And we know that that is an outcome of all of the organizers, the the community members who enjoy those festivals, the talent that is showcased there, all the vendors, small businesses who are part of making that possible, and one of the features of our city that we can agree on, that we enjoy, we want to see more of, and that we want to be able to support. And festival going is truly an unmatched way to explore Toronto. It's often low cost, low barrier, and accessible in all the ways that we want our city to be. And I want to thank staff for this work to put that highlight, that spotlight, and that focus on these efforts, and to all the festival organizers and everyone who is a part of sharing their knowledge and their expertise through this process. I don't have to tell you twice that Spadina, Fort York, and our downtown is a hub for festivals in our city, and these include a series of events year-round highlighting the city's diversity here at Nathan Phillips Square. It also includes events in spaces like Roundhouse Park in my ward, David Pico Square, and more. One of my favorite festivals, Word on the Street, which I've attended for many years and look forward to seeing each year, is now in the heart of our downtown in David Pico Square. And I want to make sure, and I'm glad to see that we are able to bring that energy and that enjoyment to every community in Toronto. And I'm excited about the commitment to larger festivals through an umbrella organization to improve our data collection and allow for our really excellent organizers to focus on what they do best, and most of all, to be able to learn from each other, and for the city to be able to have their ear to what those experiences are. I also look forward to an update on how we are identifying gaps in festivals and developing new ones in our community. That was a really important piece of work through this festival strategy that we were able to uplift and make visible. I'm glad to see the improvements coming to our permitting systems that should help streamline and simplify processes for event organizers, city staff, and local councilors' offices. And my motion today also continues to further that work as well, to make sure that we're taking the guessing game out of applying for the permissions that are required to make our our festivals and our special events successful. I do want to reiterate that I was looking for a more clarity in the council-approved direction that was requested last year in regard to the guidance around festivals as they relate to private property and the permissions that the city has around access, around noise, and around making sure that enforcement is very clear. And I look forward to my office and City Council receiving more information on this, and for a briefing and an update on some of this direction later in May. And we know the importance of this, considering particularly Winter Village at the Distillery is the longest running special event festival at one location in our city. And we heard today from the president of the Guterman and Warts Neighborhood Association, their neighborhood is the Distillery, and the president, Neil, has shared with us, and also in a letter to this committee, that even when the community engages strongly and has excellent support from their councillors and their teams, the city's lack of some of the tools means that we remain at the mercy of event organizers who are under no obligation to take action that don't suit their commercial objectives. That's not the way that we want to be working together with organizers across our city, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work with staff on advancing this work towards even greater success.
Thank you. Councillor Moise to speak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too want to thank staff for the work they put into this Toronto Festival strategy. But I also want to thank the mayor as well in her budget for increasing the funding to the Toronto Festival by 32% last year, which I mentioned, which was $613,000, $375. That's a lot of money in a time that we have financial restraints. But I know we've focused more on the larger festivals here in our conversations today, like Pride and the Caribbean Festival. But many other smaller festivals have actually benefited from this as well. For the last 4 years since I've been at council, I've been going to the Taste of Lawrence. They celebrated 20th year, I believe, last year. And that was a festival started by the local councillor. And for me, I use that as a direction, as a tool to try to do the same thing in my ward as well. And I know Councilor Shan mentioned two BIAs, and there are not too many in Scarborough. I can say to you that in the short time I've been a councillor, I've actually tried to create two new BIAs in my ward. I've tried to start up again the historic Queenies BIA, and we're trying to create a BIA in Regent Park. And so my team and I on the ground trying to do this work. And one of the things we're actually doing in Toronto Centre for this summer is trying to pedestrianize Church Street for this summer. It's been a lot of work working with staff, but it's something that is important to my community and to myself, and we're putting the work in. And we'll see the results of that after the fact. But that being said, though, I think it's important that the federal and the provincial government pay their fair share to the city and to these festivals, because we alone cannot do it. They are benefiting from this more than anyone else, quite frankly, in regards to the city. All we have is the hotel tax in regards to people coming here and staying in the hotels. And they have direct access to the sales tax. And Pride alone and the Caribbean Festival itself bring in over 1 million people, respectively, each. And you add that up, that's a lot of money. And the city gets very little from that. So I do hope that the mayor and individual councillors, perhaps talking to their counterparts provincially and federally, can actually get this moving, and that we could actually get more funding so these festivals can be more successful, and then can have more festivals. Right? We have a lot of festivals in Toronto. Many in the downtown core, yes, but we've invested in those festivals over many years. It just didn't happen overnight. So I'd like to see more, yes, in Etobicoke, in Scarborough, in North York, and even more in the downtown core as well, because people do come downtown. Even though you may have festivals other parts of the city, people still come downtown Toronto because that's where they want to be, and that's fine too. But I think as Torontonians, we all benefit as a result of that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other speakers? I'll just say a word to thank staff for bringing this forward. It's a lot of hard work, and thank you for Councillor Shan and Deputy Mayor Malik's motions. And I also want to highlight the challenges that our festival and our arts and culture sector in general face with the lack of funding. The City of Toronto disproportionately invests in our arts and culture, and on the economy of arts and culture, when the real dollars and the real fiscal capacity are with the provincial and federal governments, which are increasingly walking away from this responsibility. It's one of the great challenges of being a municipality in Ontario, where you have social services and a lot of costs downloaded to municipal government. At the same time, we have a city like Toronto, which has the largest festivals in this country, bringing in millions of people all together, and the money is being from taxes goes to the provincial and federal government, which then don't reinvest. What we face as a municipality is the significant costs of providing everything from increased ETC to sometimes costs around enforcement related to festivals. They're a public value, a public good, and publicly supported, but we're fiscally hampered by the arrangements that exist between municipalities and the senior orders of government. So I appreciate that being raised by Councillor Moise. I think it's absolutely crucial that as municipalities across Ontario, especially the large ones that are investing in arts and culture, band together to make the case more forcefully that we need a better and new deal for local government in Ontario and in Canada. So with that, I believe there's one more speaker, and I'll turn it over to Councillor Cannavale.
Thank you, Chair Bravo. Just quickly, we heard rightfully the need to grow festivals in areas that they're not as present. for many, leaving the city during the summer is a privilege and a luxury. For many, finding recreation, entertainment, enjoyment in their neighborhoods is the main source of connection and community. And hence why festivals, despite the challenges, and I've seen this in my 2 years as councillor, bringing in 3 new festivals into my ward, that comes with challenge to immediate neighborhoods. It's not politically popular, but it's important to support given the cultural and public health actual implications for communities that don't have socioeconomic privilege. So this is done through a lot of collaboration between the organizers, between the councillor's office, transportation, and of course economic development to create these opportunities. So I wanted to underscore the importance of festivals for communities that don't have much. Second, the nature of nascent or emerging festivals, as I understand, is that they're not money makers. They're for the most part passion projects for people that want to see community come together. And to that, I think our staff have to play that role of animator to create an environment that is warm, friendly, and helpful to help navigate the multiple permissions and permits required to create a festival. And that's something I'm looking forward to growing with staff, whether it's in my ward or not, to help navigate that system to take very important public spaces like Albert Campbell Square to bring in culture and community through festivals. So I think as we grow this strategy year after year, I think for consideration is how do we intentionally animate our public spaces that we know can be livelier and more vibrant. So I wanted to leave that for consideration as we look to evolve and grow and improve this strategy year after year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. And so we'll proceed to consider the item now. On the first motion, moved by Councillor Shan. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. On the second motion, moved by Deputy Mayor Malik. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Item as amended. In favor? Opposed? That's unanimous again. So thank you. We are going to move now to the final item, which is our new business item, EC 26.5, Opportunities for Performing Arts Infrastructure in Scarborough. And that was in the recommendations letter by Councillor Shan. So are there any questions about the item? Maybe we'll move then to, do you have any questions of staff? Okay. Would you, to speak, Councillor Shan?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Bravo. I'll be very quick. I just think this is in pattern with the conversation we've had around festivals, around film production. Performing arts space that is affordable, that is publicly run, is a rarity in Scarborough. We have a number of community-specific ethno-racial community centers that are there. It's beautiful that communities have come together with support from different levels of government, including the City of Toronto, have built their own community centers, but an evening program on a weekend would technically be in a couple of $1,000s just for space rental alone. So in order for us to have something that could be useful, we already are reviewing cultural spaces and cultural infrastructure as part of the work that economic development is doing. I think it'll be good to explore as part of that possibilities of physical sites for performing arts for Scarborough, as I don't think it will need a rocket scientist to say that it is a need. what options may be available could be different. I know, for example, Woburn Collegiate recently was named as an art school in Scarborough. If you go into the auditorium, it really needs a lot of work, sound system and so on. But at the same time, is there collaborations with the post-secondary or a secondary institution that we can possibly find that could meet this need? So I'm just speculating things because to kind of make a point, but I know it has to be market-driven, evidence-driven, and fully studied. So I'm asking that that analysis be incorporated into this report when it comes to council or to this committee. I hope I can get the support from the committee.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the mover? Do you have questions of the mover?
Yeah. Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you for the motion. To pick up on that, do you think there is viability for the city and the school boards to work together to create a mechanism? Because I think, to the point of Woburn, there is existing space that's not utilized, whether it's financial or the permitting process. Do you think, given our experience with permits throughout the city and tremendously more sites, is there viability for this to be logistically implemented?
Yeah, this is not specifically. That was one of the examples. I think it would be better for the staff to be given the flexibility to study the environment and look at possibilities and bring some options and things. So that was an example. I'm sure there is possibilities of collaborations that have happened with school board and the city in the past for sports-related sites and performing arts. I don't know if we have any sites. I know we have swimming pools. But I'm not prescribing that as an option right now. I gave us an example. I do think that University Scarborough campus is another example. They might be post-secondary. So to answer your question, Councillor Canterville, through the chair, is that that was an example I suggested as a way to look at different options in the current climate of resources, physical sites, and land and other things.
Thank you. Any other speakers on the item? Councillor Canterville.
Thank you, Chair. I won't belabor the points that have been raised by Councillor Shan, but also in the other items that speak to this disparity in cultural and social capital in our city. But this motion, I think, creates an important conversation, albeit within the existing Culture Connects plan, but to address this real disparity in access to cultural, social infrastructure. And I think the long-term solutions that are capital intensive are important and need to be furthered. But in the meantime, I think there's room, if council deems so, to explore the partnerships and expand the partnerships we have with other civic public institutions, whether it's school board or post-secondary, to enable our expertise in permitting and permissions to institutions that are not as viable. And I'll give a perfect example. In December, a strong cultural community in my ward wanted to get a space for an important event, and they had to pay $10K for 6 hours at the local high school, which was, to me, higher than market rent for a 300-400 stadium. So I think there's a lot to be learned and improved upon. Other big jurisdictions have greater intersection between schools and the city. New York City is the obvious example. And I think that is something that should be pursued because we have tremendous public space on public lands that needs to be publicly accessed. And despite both our tenors at the school board, and of course, Trustee Moise and Malik, there hasn't been that collaboration and intersection that we need. Many of our racialized communities that are dominant in our suburbs look for community connection through programming, social and cultural programming. And I think, and I remember as a kid, and this is obviously pre-amalgamation, many of our community events were at the local high school auditoriums, Woburn, McDonald, former Midland CI. So that's something I think is a glaring solution that needs to be pursued to answer the question is how do we make public spaces accessible, especially obviously existing public spaces. And I think that's something that I regret not pursuing at the school board, but I think we have the expertise, we have the technology, and we need to create, use the voice and position we have here to further the interests of our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cannavale just prompted me to want to speak. I'm supporting Councillor Shan's motion, and I appreciate the approach that you've taken to allow staff to explore a number of options, and including pursuing partnerships. 4 of the members of this committee are former school trustees. In fact, 5 if Councillor Carroll were here. And I think that we know that the education funding formula that the provincial government brought in with amalgamation, with the amalgamation of the school boards, doesn't fund spaces that aren't teaching spaces. So all of the places that we're talking about right now with auditoriums, cafeterias, even hallways are unfunded square footage. And the way that the provincial government funds education is very restrictive and has put the Toronto District School Board and the Catholic District School Board and the French public and Catholic boards in very serious dire straits in terms of their capital capacity. So I think that this is another example of, if we are going to advance an agenda where we can make meaningful partnerships with the school boards, we will have to now directly work with the provincial government, particularly since trustees are no longer elected and we don't have that kind of local representation anymore. So I wouldn't want anyone to think that the City of Toronto can take that up. We don't have the capital funds out of property taxes to be able to take over those spaces and enter into expensive partnerships with school boards that have serious capital challenges and would therefore seek maximum recovery. So I think that the idea of having performance-based, as Councillor Shan said, is very much in line with what we've talked about in terms of having vibrant arts and culture across the city that actually is an entry point into wanting to get into working in the arts, perhaps even in the film industry, as we discussed earlier, and it aligns with many strategies that the city has taken up. So that's all I wanted to say. I think that we are making real strides at the City of Toronto, but obviously there's more to do, and the senior orders of government have to step up when it comes to arts and culture in the city. And frankly, in every municipality in Ontario. Any final speakers? No? On the motion, on the item? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And that concludes our agenda for today. It's a unusually short ECDC meeting, but I want to thank all of the members that are here present, the staff, and the clerks. Thank you very much. And of course, members of the public who joined and who came to depute, we are most grateful. Have a great day.
Take care. Bye-bye.